The first calf was missing before sunrise. Denzel Jackson noticed it while the eastern edge of the Texas sky was still the color of cold steel. He stood at the south pasture gate with one boot on the bottom rail, counting dark shapes as they moved through the morning fog. 112 cows, 27 calves. Then he counted again. The wind pushed the smell of wet grass and cedar across the Whitaker Ranch. Somewhere beyond the low hills, a diesel engine coughed to life. A red-tailed hawk circled above the mesquite trees, waiting for the day to reveal whatever the night had left behind. Denzel lowered his clipboard. 27. There should have been 28. The missing calf was a 6-month-old red baldy with a white stripe running crooked across its face. Number 214. Strong legs, healthy weight. Friendly enough to follow a feed bucket, but nervous around unfamiliar horses. Calves wandered. Gates failed. Coyotes tested fences. But Denzel had spent 18 years on the Whitaker Ranch, and something about the empty space beside the calf's mother made his stomach tighten. The cow stood apart from the herd, bawling toward the western ridge. Denzel climbed into his pickup and followed her gaze. By 7, the ranch hands had searched the creek bed, the cedar breaks, and the old limestone wash near the north fence. They found no blood, no tracks leading under the wire, and no place where the calf could have slipped through. By 8, they discovered 2 more calves missing. By 9, Travis Whitaker was accusing Denzel Jackson of stealing them. The accusation came inside the equipment barn, in front of 6 ranch hands, the ranch accountant and Travis's father. Denzel had just walked in, carrying a torn section of fence wire, when Travis slammed a plastic evidence bag onto the workbench. Inside, it was an orange ear tag, marked with the number 214. Denzel looked at the tag, then at Travis. "Where'd you get that?" "Your truck." The barn seemed to grow quieter around them. Travis stood on the opposite side of the bench, broad-shouldered and clean-shaven, wearing a pearl-snap shirt too white for a working ranch. He had his father's height, but none of his stillness. Even when he stood in place, some part of him moved. A tapping thumb, a shifting jaw, a restless glance toward the door. Denzel set down the fence wire. "You went through my truck?" "I didn't have to. It was sitting on the passenger seat." "No, it wasn't." Travis gave a humorless laugh. "You saying I planted it?" "I'm saying it wasn't in my truck." Behind Travis, Walter Whitaker leaned heavily on a black walnut cane. At 71, the owner of the ranch still had the hard face of a man who had spent more time under sun than shelter. But a stroke the previous winter had weakened his left side. He could walk, though slowly. He could speak, though each sentence took effort. He looked from Denzel to the ear tag. "Anything else?" Walter asked. Travis pulled a bank envelope from his back pocket. "Found this under the seat." He dumped a stack of $100 bills onto the workbench. Nobody moved. Denzel stared at the money. "How much?" $8,000. "And you found that in my truck too?" Sheriff's deputy did. Only then did Denzel notice Deputy Cole Madsen near the barn entrance, one hand resting on his belt. Cole had grown up 10 miles from the ranch. He and Denzel had played high school football on the same field, though not in the same years. Cole had been a freshman when Denzel was a senior. They had never been friends, but they had known each other long enough to recognize when the other man was afraid. Cole looked afraid now, not of Denzel, of what came next. "Denzel," Cole said quietly, "I need you to step away from the bench." One of the younger ranch hands sucked in a breath. Denzel kept his eyes on Travis. You found 3 calves missing this morning, and before anybody's even finished checking the fence, you've got an ear tag and $8,000 in my truck. Travis folded his arms. That's right. That happened fast. You've been running cattle here for almost 20 years. You know how to move them without leaving a mess. You think I sold 3 calves for $8,000? I think this isn't the first time. The words hit harder than the accusation itself. Denzel looked toward Walter. For 18 years, he had brought calves through ice storms and droughts. He had slept in the calving barn during difficult births. He had repaired fences at midnight, buried ranch dogs, broken horses, trained hands, and once driven Walter 40 miles through a flood because the ambulance could not reach the house. Walter knew him. Denzel waited for the old man to say so. Instead, Walter stared at the money. How many are missing total? Walter asked. Travis answered before Denzel could. 11 over the last 3 months. Denzel turned sharply. 11? Travis nodded. We checked the records. What records? The inventory sheets. I do the inventory sheets. And somebody's been changing them. Denzel looked toward the ranch accountant. Leonard Pike stood near a stack of mineral tubs, holding a leather folder against his chest. He was a narrow man in his late 50s, with silver hair combed carefully over a widening bald spot. He had worked for the Whitakers nearly as long as Denzel had. Leonard avoided Denzel's eyes. Tell him, Travis said. Leonard swallowed. The physical count and the written count don't match. Since when? Late April. Who found the difference? Travis asked me to review the sales records. Denzel felt the shape of the trap then. Not all of it. Not yet. But enough. He looked back at Travis. You've been building this. Travis stepped around the bench. You built it yourself. Cole moved closer. Denzel, turn around. Several ranch hands stared at the floor. One did not. Earl Denner, 63 years old and bent slightly from decades in the saddle, watched Denzel with a look that said he understood exactly what was happening and hated himself for staying silent. Denzel took off his hat and placed it on the bench. Walter, he said. The old rancher lifted his eyes. Denzel did not ask whether Walter believed him. He could not bring himself to put 18 years into a question that might be answered with doubt. Instead, he said, Number 214 didn't go through the north fence. The cow's calling west. Somebody moved that calf uphill. Travis rolled his eyes. He's still trying to run the search. I'm trying to tell you where to look. You're done telling anybody what to do? Denzel turned to face Cole. The deputy took out his handcuffs. Behind them, Walter's cane scraped across the concrete. Wait, he said. Hope rose in Denzel before he could stop it. Walter looked at Cole. No cuffs. Travis frowned. A dad. No cuffs, Walter repeated. Cole hesitated, then put them away. Denzel almost laughed. That was what 18 years had earned him. Not trust, not defense. The privilege of being arrested without metal around his wrists. Cole led him out of the barn, while the ranch hands stood in silence. The sun had climbed above the hills. The fog was gone. Everything looked sharp and ordinary. The windmill turning above the stock tank, the horses shifting behind the corral, the yellow ranch house on the ridge. Denzel had always believed the worst moments of a man's life would arrive with some warning. Thunder, sirens, a cracking sky. Instead, his life came apart under a clear, blue Texas morning. As he reached the deputy's vehicle, he heard a cow bawling from the western pasture. Number 214's mother was still calling. Denzel stopped and looked toward the ridge. Travis shoved his hat back on his head. "Keep moving." Denzel studied him. There was a dust on Travis's boots. Not red pasture dust, not pale limestone from the South Range. Dark blue-gray clay. The kind found around only one place on the Whitaker property. The old loading pen beyond Cedar Ridge. Denzel looked down at the calf's ear tag, still visible through the barn doorway. Then back at the mud on Travis's boots. And for the first time that morning, he understood that the missing calf was not the reason he was being arrested. It was the mistake that might save him. The county jail in Abilene smelled like bleach, sweat, and burnt coffee. Denzel sat alone in a holding cell for 4 hours while Cole completed paperwork and waited for the sheriff to return from a highway accident. Nobody questioned him. Nobody asked where he had been the previous night or whether the money belonged to him. The evidence had been found in his truck. That seemed to be enough. He sat on the metal bench with his hands folded between his knees, replaying the morning. 3 missing calves, 11 in 3 months, the ear tag, the cash, Travis's boots, the old loading pen. Denzel had closed that pen himself 6 years earlier after the Western Access Road washed out. The chute still stood, but cedar and scrub had grown around it. No one used the place because trucks could no longer reach it from the ranch side. But there was another way in. A narrow county utility road ran behind the ridge. It was not on most maps, and the gate had been chained for years. Or it was supposed to be. The sheriff arrived shortly after noon. Ray Bell was a large man with a gray mustache and tired eyes. He had known Denzel since they were boys. They were not close, but in rural counties, a man could know the milestones of another person's life without ever sitting at his dinner table. Ray stood outside the cell. "You got somebody to post bond?" "My sister's coming from Fort Worth." Ray nodded. "You want to tell me your side?" "I'd rather tell you after you decide whether you're asking as sheriff or as a man who already thinks I did it." Ray's jaw tightened. "I don't think anything yet." "You let a deputy arrest me before anyone searched the Western Ridge. You had an ear, tag, and cash in your truck. I had neither until somebody put them there." "Who?" "Travis Whitaker." Ray exhaled through his nose. "That's a serious accusation." "So is cattle theft." "Why would Travis frame you?" "I don't know yet." Ray leaned closer to the bars. "Yet." Denzel looked toward the narrow window at the end of the corridor. "Check the old loading pen beyond Cedar Ridge." "For what?" "Blue-gray clay, fresh tire tracks, and maybe a calf if he hasn't moved it." Ray studied him. "You got proof Travis was there?" "His boots." "That's not proof." "No. But it's more than anybody had against me before they put me in this cell." The sheriff's expression changed slightly. Not agreement, but discomfort. He straightened. "I'll send someone." "Send Cole." "Why?" "Because he saw the boots too." Ray left without answering. Denzel's sister arrived just after 3. Janice Jackson entered the sheriff's office, wearing Navy hospital scrubs beneath a long tan coat, her hair pulled into a tight bun. She was 5 years younger than Denzel, a surgical nurse, and the kind of woman who could make a room feel disorganized simply by stepping into it. She signed the bond paperwork, then waited until they were outside before speaking. "Did you do it?" Denzel stopped beside her car. Janice held his gaze. He should have been offended. Instead, he appreciated the question. It was direct, clean. It gave him the chance Walter had not. "No." She nodded once. "Good. Then we ruin whoever did." Despite everything, Denzel smiled. Janice opened the driver's door. "You can laugh later. Get in." They drove toward the small house Denzel rented on the eastern edge of the Whitaker property. The ranch house belonged to Walter, but Denzel had renovated it himself over the years. He had replaced the roof, rebuilt the porch, and planted 2 pecan trees near the drive. Halfway there, his phone began vibrating. Missed calls, messages, a local news alert. Ranch foreman arrested in cattle theft investigation. The article contained a photograph of Denzel from a county agricultural award dinner 3 years earlier. He was standing beside Walter, both of them smiling beneath a banner that read, "Stewards of the Land." The irony was sharp enough to feel deliberate. Janice glanced at him. "Don't read comments." "I wasn't going to." "You were." Denzel set the phone face down. When they reached the house, a sheriff's vehicle was parked near the porch. Cole stood beside it. Janice stiffened. "He got a warrant?" "He doesn't need one. The house belongs to Walter." "That doesn't mean he can walk in." Denzel got out of the car. Cole approached slowly. "We searched the old loading pen." Denzel looked at his boots. "Clean now." "And?" "Fresh tracks, trailer tires. 1 set of truck prints." "What kind?" "Couldn't tell. Ground's too torn up." "Any cattle?" "No." "Gate chain?" "Cut." "When?" "Recently." Denzel nodded. Cole glanced toward Janice, then lowered his voice. There was blue rope caught on the chute. The same rope Denzel had ordered 2 years earlier. A heavy marine-grade line used at several working pens around the ranch. "Did you take it?" "Sheriff did." "Did Travis explain why his boots were muddy?" Cole's eyes shifted. "He said he checked a water line yesterday afternoon." "There's no water. Line near Cedar Ridge." "I know." "You tell Ray that?" "I did." Denzel waited. Cole rubbed his jaw. Travis changed his story. Said he drove through the utility road looking for hog tracks. And Ray believed him. "Ray didn't say." Janice stepped forward. "Why are you here?" Cole looked uncomfortable. "Walter asked me to make sure Denzel left the ranch house by tonight." For a moment, even the wind seemed to stop. Denzel looked at his home. The porch swing he had built. The green shutters he had painted the previous spring. The old horseshoe nailed above the door, given to him by Walter after Denzel saved a mare during a difficult foaling. "Tonight," Denzel repeated. Cole nodded. "Travis said the ranch can't have you staying on the property during the investigation." Travis said. "Walter Ag Jackson." Denzel looked toward the distant hills. The ranch stretched in every direction, nearly 12,000 acres of pasture, cedar breaks, creek land, and limestone ridge. He knew every gate, every weak fence line, every place cattle sheltered when north winds came down hard. He had spent 18 years believing that knowledge made him part of the ranch. Now he understood the difference between belonging somewhere and being allowed to stay. Janice touched his arm. "You're coming with me. I need my things. Take what matters." Inside the house, Denzel packed 2 duffel bags while Cole waited outside. He took clothes, boots, family photographs, an old Bible that had belonged to his mother, and a wooden box containing letters from his late wife. He left the furniture. He left the bookshelves. He left the kitchen table where ranch hands had eaten chili during winter storms. Before walking out, he stood in the empty bedroom doorway and remembered the night his wife, Camille, had looked around the newly painted room and said, "You know, this isn't really ours." He had been replacing a light fixture. "What do you mean?" The house? It's ours as long as I work here. She'd smiled sadly. That's not the same thing. Camille had died 9 years earlier, after a brief illness. At the time, Denzel had thought she was talking about paperwork. Now he heard the warning beneath her words. As he stepped onto the porch, a pickup appeared on the road. Earl Danner parked near the gate and climbed out. His shoulders sagged beneath a faded denim jacket. Cole moved toward him. You're not supposed to be here. I work here, not at this house. Earl ignored him and walked to Denzel. I'm sorry. Denzel carried his bags to Janice's car. For what? For standing there. You thought I did it? No. Then why didn't you say so? Earl looked toward the ranch. Because Travis has been looking for reasons to clear out anybody loyal to Walter. I'm loyal to the ranch. That's what scares him. Denzel put one bag in the trunk. Earl lowered his voice. There's something else. Cole was still near the porch, pretending not to listen. Earl stepped closer. 2 weeks ago, I saw a livestock trailer on County Road 18 around 2 in the morning. No lights except running lamps. It came out near the utility gate. You recognize the truck? No. Dark dually. Could have been black or navy. You tell anyone? Travis, next morning. What did he say? Said it was probably oil field equipment. Denzel looked at Earl. Why tell Travis? Because he's acting like he runs the place. He is running it. Earl's face tightened. Not yet. The words carried more weight than Denzel understood. Before he could ask, a deep sound rolled across the ranch. Thunder. Clouds had been building in the northwest, dark and tall above the flat horizon. Texas storms could rise out of a bright afternoon like anger surfacing in a quiet man. Cole looked toward the sky. Storm warning says hail. Earl's attention shifted to the western pasture. Calves are still out by the ridge. Denzel followed his gaze. Under normal circumstances, he would already have men moving the herd toward the lower shelter pens. Instead, he was loading his life into his sister's trunk. A flash of lightning split the clouds. Seconds later, thunder struck hard enough to shake the porch windows. Denzel looked at Cole. Tell them not to push the cattle through the creek crossing. Water rises fast there. Cole gave a tired nod. I'll tell them. Denzel closed the trunk. As Janice drove away, rain began to strike the windshield in heavy, scattered drops. The Whitaker Ranch disappeared behind a curtain of gray. By nightfall, the storm had flooded 2 county roads, knocked out power across the northern part of the county, and dropped golf ball-sized hail over the Whitaker South pasture. Denzel sat at Janice's kitchen table in Fort Worth, staring at a cup of coffee he had not touched. Janice had changed out of her scrubs and was pacing between the stove and the window, speaking to an attorney from her hospital network. No, she said. He did not consent to the search. The vehicle was parked on private ranch property. Yes, I understand the employer owns the property. I'm asking about the truck. Denzel barely listened. His mind was on the storm. He pictured water rising in the creek, cattle bunching against fences, young calves turning their backs to the hail, ranch hands making rushed decisions without him. His phone rang. Earl. Denzel answered immediately. What happened? Creek came over the crossing. Travis tried moving the herd anyway. Anybody hurt? Ramon got thrown. Shoulder, maybe ribs. Cattle? Scattered. We've got 30 head unaccounted for, but they'll turn up by morning. Denzel stood. The Red Baldy's mother? She broke away during the move. Which direction? Cedar Ridge. Denzel walked toward the window. Rain hammered the glass. Earl, listen to me. Don't follow her tonight. I wasn't planning to. The old utility road could wash out. I know. There was a pause. Then Earl said, Something happened after you left. What? Walter and Travis got into it. About me? About the arrest. Walter asked Leonard to bring him the full cattle inventory. Travis said there wasn't time with the storm. Walter told him to get out of the office. Denzel's grip tightened around the phone. So Walter has doubts? Maybe. Doubt came late. I know. Denzel sat back down. Earl lowered his voice. Travis left the ranch around 6. In this weather? Pulled out in his silver truck? Didn't say where. Trailer? No. Denzel thought of the old loading pen, the missing calf, and the cut chain. Call me if he comes back. Janice ended her call and looked at Denzel. What now? We get an attorney tomorrow. That's not what I mean. Denzel knew. He looked through the dark window toward a city full of lights and roads and people who had no idea a cow was calling for her calf 80 miles west. Now we wait for the storm to uncover what somebody tried to hide. At 2:17 in the East, the morning, Earl called again. Denzel woke on Janice's couch and answered before the second ring. We found the calf, Earl said. Denzel sat up. Alive. Alive. Where? That's the problem. Denzel swung his feet to the floor. Where, Earl? In the North Horse pasture. That's impossible. I know. The North Horse pasture sat almost 4 miles from where number 214 had disappeared. Between them were 2 locked gates, a creek, and a steep cedar ridge. A 6-month-old calf might cover the distance if frightened, but not during a violent storm and not without being seen. How to get there? No idea, but it came dragging blue rope. Denzel closed his eyes. How long? 6 or 7 feet, tied around its neck with a slip knot. Any injuries? Rope burn, cuts on the legs, mud up to its belly. What kind of mud? Earl did not answer immediately. Then he said, Blue-gray. Denzel stood. Don't let Travis near that calf. He's not back yet. Take pictures. The rope, the mud, the knot, everything. Already did. Call Ray Bell. I called you first. Call Ray now. Denzel hung up and woke Janice. Within 20 minutes, they were on Interstate 30 heading west through the last edges of the storm. The road shone black under the headlights. Lightning flickered far to the south, illuminating clouds piled like mountains. Janice drove with both hands on the wheel, while Denzel watched rainwater race sideways across the windows. You know this could be bait, she said. For what? To get you back on ranch property so Travis can say you tampered with evidence. I'm not going onto the ranch. You were planning to. I'm planning to meet Ray at the county road. Janice glanced at him. That is the first intelligent thing you've said since yesterday morning. They reached the utility gate just before 4. Sheriff Bell's SUV sat beside the road, with its emergency lights flashing silently. Cole's vehicle was parked behind it. Earl stood under the raised hatch of his pickup, rain dripping from his hat brim. The calf lay in a small livestock trailer hitched behind Earl's truck. Denzel stopped several yards away. Ray raised a hand. Don't come closer yet. Denzel obeyed. The sheriff photographed the trailer from multiple angles. Cole held a flashlight while a county livestock inspector examined the calf's legs. Number 214 was exhausted but alert. The orange tag was missing from its left ear, leaving a small, fresh tear. A blue rope circled its neck, darkened by rain and mud. Denzel recognized the knot immediately. Not just the type, the hand that tied it. He stepped closer before Ray stopped him again. I said, "Wait." Denzel pointed. "That knot came from the ranch." Ray frowned. "It's a slip knot. Look at the tail." Cole aimed the light. The free end of the rope had been wrapped twice around the standing line, then tucked backward through the second loop. "Earl ties it that way," Ray said. Earl's head snapped up. "So does half the county." "No," Denzel said. "Earl dresses his knots left-handed. That one's right-handed." Ray looked at him. "Who ties it like that?" Denzel stared at the rope. "Travis." Silence settled over the roadside. Cole shifted his weight. "You're sure?" "I taught him." Years earlier, when Travis returned from college with more confidence than skill, Walter had ordered Denzel to teach him every major ranch operation. Travis had learned quickly when he cared to. He tied ropes neatly, backed trailers well, and read cattle better than most people gave him credit for. That was part of what made the accusation so dangerous. Travis knew exactly how Denzel worked. Ray stood. "Where'd Earl find the calf?" "North horse pasture," Earl said. "Came out of the cedar break around 1:30. Horses went crazy." "Gate locked?" "Yes." "Fence damage?" "None." Denzel looked toward Cedar Ridge, a black shape against the clearing sky. "There's an old service trail through the ridge." Earl frowned. "No, there isn't. There used to be, before Walter bought the eastern section." Ray turned. "How do you know?" "I found part of it years ago. Thought it ended at a washout." "What if it doesn't?" Denzel studied the mud on the calf's legs. "Then somebody moved cattle through the ridge and brought this one back because they couldn't take it with the others." "Why bring it back at all?" Cole asked. Denzel looked at the calf's torn ear. "They didn't mean to." The rain weakened to a mist. The livestock inspector stepped away from the trailer. "This animal's dehydrated. Cuts are superficial. Rope burns fresh. Mud's packed between the hooves." Ray looked at Cole. "Bag samples." Cole took out evidence containers. Denzel stayed where he was, watching number 214 breathe. The calf had done more in one storm than any person on the ranch had done in 18 hours. It had returned with the truth tied around its neck. Travis arrived at dawn. His silver pickup came fast down County Road 18, headlights bouncing over potholes. He braked behind Janice's car and climbed out wearing the same white shirt from the previous morning, now wrinkled and stained. His face changed when he saw the calf. Only for a second, but Denzel saw it. So did Ray. Travis recovered quickly. "Where'd you find it?" Earl answered. "North pasture." Travis approached the trailer. Ray stepped into his path. "Hold up." "What?" "This is evidence." "Evidence of what?" "That's what we're figuring out." Travis looked toward Denzel. "What's he doing here?" "I called him," Earl said. "You had no right." "I had every right." Travis jabbed a finger toward the ranch. "You work for us." "I work for Walter." "Same thing." Earl's eyes hardened. "Not anymore." Travis turned to Ray. "Denzel is under investigation. He shouldn't be anywhere near ranch cattle." Denzel folded his arms. "I'm on a county road." "You think this clears you?" "No." "Good. It makes you nervous, though." Travis laughed too loudly. "Why would I be nervous about a calf?" "Because you tied that rope." The color left Travis's face, then returned twice as dark. That's insane. Denzel pointed toward his boots. This time they were clean, too clean. The storm had turned every shoulder and ditch along County Road 18 into mud. Earl's boots were soaked. Cole's trousers were splashed to the knee. Even Ray's brown uniform shoes were coated. Travis's boots looked freshly scrubbed. Ray noticed. "Where were you last night?" the sheriff asked. Travis looked at him. "What?" "Earl says you left around 6. I went to town." "Where?" "Friend's place." "Name?" Travis hesitated. "Dylan Cross." Denzel knew the name. Dylan owned a sports bar outside Abilene and had a reputation for private poker games that sometimes lasted until sunrise. Ray took out his notebook. "What time did you arrive?" 7:30. "What time did you leave?" "About 3. Dylan confirmed that?" "Yeah." "You call him?" "No." "Then how do you know?" "Because I was there." Ray nodded slowly. "We'll check." Travis glanced again at the calf. The animal lifted its head. For one strange moment, man and calf stared at each other as though each recognized the other. Then number 214 struggled to its feet. A small metal object fell from the mud packed beneath its chest and struck the trailer floor. Cole leaned in and picked it up with a gloved hand. It was a brass key, old, narrow, and stamped with the letters BLP. Denzel looked toward Cedar Ridge. Earl whispered, "Blue Line pen." The abandoned loading pen had once been painted blue. Ranch hands had called it the Blue Line pen long before Denzel arrived. The paint had faded, but the name remained in old maintenance ledgers and cattle maps. Travis stepped backward. Ray held up the key. "You ever seen this?" "No." Denzel watched him. "That key opens the storage shed beside the old chute." Travis shook his head. "That shed hasn't been opened in years." "Then you do remember it." "I grew up here." Ray placed the key in an evidence bag. "We're going to the pen." Travis's jaw tightened. "You need a warrant." "For your ranch?" "It's private property." Ray looked toward Denzel. "Funny. Yesterday that didn't seem to bother anybody." The old loading pen sat in a hollow beyond Cedar Ridge, hidden by cedar trees and scrub oak. The main ranch road had washed out years earlier, but the utility road approached from behind and ended within a quarter-mile of the chute. Ray obtained Walter's permission by phone before leading the group through the cut-chain gate. Denzel remained outside the property line at first, unwilling to give Travis any claim of trespass. Walter eventually spoke to him directly. "Go with them," the old man said over Ray's speakerphone. Denzel listened to the voice he had trusted for nearly 2 decades. "Are you asking for my help?" A long pause followed. "Yes." "Do you believe I stole your cattle?" Another pause. "I don't know." Denzel closed his eyes. "Then I'll help the sheriff, not you." He entered through the gate. The service trail was slick with mud and broken branches. Tire impressions ran deep along the center. A truck and livestock trailer had passed through recently, perhaps more than once. At the loading pen, storm water pooled beneath rusted rails. The chute gate hung open. Blue rope fibers clung to a metal latch. The storage shed stood 20 yards away, its corrugated roof sagging. Cole inserted the brass key. The lock opened. Inside, they found a portable cattle scale, 2 boxes of blank ear tags, a battery-powered tag printer, veterinary syringes, 6 ranch registration certificates, and a ledger wrapped in plastic. They also found blood, not enough to suggest violence. A smear along the wall, a few drops near the floor, and a larger stain on a section of rope. The livestock inspector crouched beside it. Animal blood, probably. Denzel looked at the chute. They were changing tags. Ray opened the ledger. Pages of handwritten numbers filled the book. Dates, weights, tag numbers, sale prices, initials. Some entries went back 6 months. Cole stood beside him. That's more than 11 calves. 43, Denzel said after scanning the pages. Travis stepped into the shed doorway. Ray turned sharply. I told you to stay outside. It's my family's property. Then maybe you can explain this. Travis stared at the ledger. His expression revealed nothing now. I've never seen it. Denzel pointed to an entry near the bottom of the latest page. T.W. Travis shrugged. Could mean anything. 43 animals missing, Denzel said. That means the inventory records were changed. Travis looked at Leonard Pike, who had arrived with Walter in a ranch SUV. The accountant stood beside the vehicle, pale and rigid. Walter stepped carefully onto the muddy ground. His cane sank slightly. He surveyed the chute, the shed, and the boxes of ear tags. Then he looked at Travis. What is this? Travis walked toward him. Dad, I swear I don't know. Walter's face tightened with effort. You told me Denzel altered the books. He did. The books are Leonard's. Denzel gives him the numbers. Everyone looked at Leonard. The accountant's mouth opened, but no words came. Ray held up the ledger. Mr. Pike, I'm going to need your full accounting records. Leonard clutched his folder. Of course. Today. Yes. Did you know this pen was active? No. You recognize the handwriting? Leonard looked at the open page from several feet away. I'd need a closer look. Ray carried the ledger toward him. Leonard studied it. His eyes moved quickly across the page. No, he said. I don't recognize it. Denzel watched his hands. They trembled. Walter leaned against his cane. 43 cattle, he whispered. The loss was serious, but not enough to destroy a ranch the size of Whitaker's. What frightened Walter was not the money. It was the secrecy. Denzel understood because he felt the same thing. A ranch was held together by records, gates, habits, and trust. Break enough of those quietly, and the land could look whole right up until the day everything collapsed. Ray closed the ledger. This changes the investigation. Travis pointed at Denzel. It proves he had a bigger operation. Denzel took one step toward him. You planted $8,000 in my truck and thought that would explain 43 head. I didn't plant anything. You're not as smart as you think. Travis's eyes flashed. And you're not as important as you think. The words landed between them. Walter looked at his son. Enough. Travis turned. He's been waiting for this. For what? To turn you against me. Denzel felt something cold settle in his chest. Travis was not defending himself anymore. He was defending his place. That meant the theft was only part of the story. Ray sent everyone away from the shed while deputies photographed the scene. Before Denzel left, he studied the tire tracks near the chute. The trailer had backed in at an angle. The right wheel had rolled over a broken drainage grate, leaving a distinctive split tread impression in the mud. He had seen that tread before, not on Travis's trailer. On the ranch's gray Wilson livestock trailer, the one supposedly sold for scrap after an axle failure the previous year. Denzel turned to Earl. Where's the old Wilson? Gone. Who hauled it away? Earl thought. Travis arranged it. Buyer? No idea. Denzel looked toward the utility road. The missing cattle had not disappeared. They had been traveling through a trailer everybody believed no longer existed. By afternoon, the county prosecutor suspended formal charges against Denzel, pending further investigation, but the arrest remained public. The news article was updated with a single sentence stating that additional evidence had been discovered. The comments stayed. Thief, ungrateful, knew there was something wrong with him. Somebody posted a photograph of Denzel being led from the barn. Another person shared an old story about a black ranch hand stealing horses in a neighboring county, as though guilt could travel through skin and geography. Janice wanted him to stay away from the internet. Denzel did. But the words reached him anyway. A feed supplier canceled a scheduled meeting about a potential partnership Denzel had been considering. A horse owner from Weatherford called to say she would no longer bring her gelding for training. A church deacon Denzel had known for years sent a message saying he was praying for truth on all sides. Truth on all sides. As though truth were a fence everyone had built differently. Denzel stayed at Janice's house for 2 nights, then moved into a roadside motel outside Abilene to remain near the investigation. He paid weekly cash and parked where he could see his truck from the window. On the 3rd morning, Walter called. Denzel let the phone ring twice before answering. "I need to talk to you," Walter said. "Talk. Not by phone. Then come to the motel." A long silence. Walter had never visited a roadside motel in his life, unless livestock or machinery had broken down nearby. "Come to the ranch," he said. "No. Denzel, you removed me from my home before sunset. You can come here?" Walter arrived an hour later in a dark green Suburban driven by Earl. Denzel met them in the motel breakfast room, where a television played a muted weather report and a waffle machine beeped beside a bowl of bruised apples. Walter sat slowly at a plastic table. Earl poured coffee for all 3. Walter looked smaller away from the ranch. His denim jacket hung loosely around his shoulders. The cane rested against his knee. "I was wrong to make you leave so quickly," he said. Denzel waited. "I should have let the investigation proceed." "You should have known me." Walter looked down. "I knew the evidence. You knew what somebody placed in front of you." "I was afraid." The admission surprised Denzel. Walter Whitaker did not speak easily about fear. Of what? "My judgment." Walter flexed his weak left hand. "Since the stroke, Travis has handled more decisions. He kept telling me I was missing things, forgetting things." Denzel thought of inventory sheets and changed records. "You believed him." "Sometimes. And the rest?" "The rest I pretended to." Earl set down his cup. Walter looked toward the television, though he was not watching it. "Travis has always wanted the ranch. When he came home from college, I thought wanting it was enough." "It isn't." "I know. Does he?" Walter's expression hardened. "He will." Denzel leaned back. "You came here to apologize." "I came because Leonard found something." Walter slid a folded bank statement across the table. Denzel opened it. The ranch operating account showed a line of transfers to a company called Prairie Meridian Consulting. The payments began 8 months earlier and increased steadily. "What is Prairie Meridian?" "Leonard says a livestock risk advisory firm." "You hired them?" "I don't remember." "Who authorized the transfers?" "Electronic approval under my name." Denzel scanned the amounts. Nearly $300,000 total. "This isn't about 43 calves. No. Who owns the company? We don't know. Leonard should. He says Travis recommended them. Denzel folded the statement. What does Travis say? That I approved it and forgot. Walter's voice cracked on the last word. Denzel looked at the old man. For the first time, he saw not the owner of 12,000 acres, but a father being told his mind could no longer be trusted by the son who stood to inherit everything. What do you need from me? Help me find out what's happening. You have a sheriff. Ray investigates crimes. You know the ranch. So does Travis. Walter held his gaze. That is what frightens me. Denzel looked at Earl. The older hand gave no sign of what he thought. Outside, trucks moved along the highway, carrying cattle, gravel, fuel, and people whose lives had not been interrupted by accusation. Denzel could refuse. Part of him wanted to. Walter had abandoned him at the first appearance of evidence. He had chosen blood over loyalty and fear over judgment. But 43 cattle were missing. Hundreds of thousands of dollars had vanished. The ranch that held nearly 2 decades of Denzel's life was being dismantled from the inside. And Travis had not merely stolen from his father, he had used Denzel's name as cover. I'll help Ray, Denzel said. Not privately, not off the books. Everything I find goes to him. Walter nodded. And I don't come back as foreman. Pain crossed the old man's face. What do you want? My name cleared publicly. It will be. Not will be. You do it now. The investigation isn't finished. The accusation was public before the investigation started. Walter looked toward Earl. Denzel leaned forward. You stood in that barn while your son called me a thief. You let deputies take me away. You made me leave my house. If you have doubts now, say them where everybody heard the lie. Walter's hand tightened around his cane. You're asking me to accuse my son. No, I'm asking you to admit you were wrong about me. The old man sat in silence. Then he took out his phone. What are you doing? Earl asked. Walter called the local newspaper. By noon, a new article appeared. Ranch owner withdraws accusation against longtime foreman. Walter's statement was brief but direct. He said evidence had emerged that cast serious doubt on Denzel's involvement. He stated Denzel had served the Whitaker Ranch with honor for 18 years and deserved the presumption of innocence he had not received. It did not erase the arrest, but it shifted the wind. Messages came from people who had remained silent. Apologies arrived from 2 ranch hands and the horse owner in Weatherford. The feed supplier asked to reschedule. Denzel accepted none of it yet. Words offered after power changed hands were often less about regret than self-protection. That afternoon, he met Ray Bell at the sheriff's office. The ledger from the Blue Line pen lay inside a clear evidence sleeve. Copies of sales records covered the conference table. Ray pointed to a series of livestock auctions. Most of the stolen cattle were sold through smaller barns in 3 counties. Different seller names, cash payments under reporting thresholds. Brand inspections? Brands were altered. That takes skill. Inspector says acid and overbranding. Denzel looked at photographs of damaged hides. The original Whitaker W had been changed into shapes resembling other ranch marks. Any auction cameras? Some. We've got trailers, hats, backs of heads. Nobody clear. Gray Wilson trailer? Ray slid over a still image. A livestock trailer sat beneath floodlights at a sale barn outside San Angelo. Gray aluminum sides, rust near the front vent, one wheel with a split tread pattern. "That's it," Denzel said. "Registration plate belongs to a flatbed in Oklahoma." "Truck?" "Dark Ford dually. No front plate visible." Denzel studied the image. A man stood beside the trailer wearing a tan jacket and black hat. His face was turned away. Not Travis. Too narrow through the shoulders. "Leonard," Denzel said. Ray raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" "No." The figure held a clipboard in his left hand. Leonard was left-handed. But many men were. Ray pulled out another photograph. "This is from 3 months earlier. Same trailer, same truck. This time 2 men stood near the loading gate. One wore the tan jacket, the other was taller and broader. Travis. The taller man's face was partially visible beneath the hat brim. Not enough for a clean identification, but enough for Denzel. "That's him." Ray nodded. "I think so too." "Why haven't you arrested him?" "Because thinking isn't enough. His attorney says the image could be anybody." "He has an attorney already?" "Since this morning." Denzel looked again at the photograph. "Where did the sale money go?" "Some cash, some deposits into shell accounts. Prairie Meridian received transfers close to several sale dates." "Owner?" "Filed through a registered agent in Delaware." "Meaning?" "Meaning somebody paid to stay hidden." Denzel leaned back. "What about Dylan Cross?" "Travis wasn't at the bar during the storm. So his alibi failed. Dylan says he hasn't seen him in 2 weeks. Still no arrest." Ray's expression tightened. "I'm building a case that survives a court. Travis being a liar doesn't prove cattle theft. It proves he lied about where he was when the calf returned." "It does." Denzel stood and walked to the window. Across the street, a woman loaded groceries into an SUV, while 2 children argued over a bag of chips. "Why bring the calf back?" Ray asked. Denzel turned. He didn't. "Then who did?" Denzel thought of the rope burn, the mud, and the calf emerging from the cedar break. Maybe the calf escaped. From the pen? The Blue Line pen connects to the old service trail. If they were loading cattle during the storm, number 214 might have broken loose. And crossed 4 miles. Not 4. Denzel returned to the table. "Get the original ranch maps. Before Walter bought the eastern section, there may be an old stock tunnel through Cedar Ridge." Ray frowned. "A tunnel?" "Not underground. A cut. Maybe a narrow pass hidden by cedar. Ranchers used to drive cattle through there before the county road was built. If it connects to the north pasture, then number 214 didn't come home from 4 miles away. It followed an old route less than a mile long." Ray called the county records office. 2 hours later, they found the map. A faded blue line ran through Cedar Ridge from the loading pen to the North Horse pasture. The line had been marked Old Drover Cut, unmaintained. At dawn the next day, Denzel, Ray, Cole, and a county surveyor entered the cedar break from the north pasture. The opening was almost invisible. Branches formed a wall around a narrow limestone gap. Inside, the path descended between steep rock faces, barely wide enough for one animal at a time. Fresh hoof prints marked the mud. So did boot prints. Near the midpoint, they found a temporary panel gate wired across the cut. Blue rope hung from one corner. A section had snapped. Number 214 had broken through. Beyond the gate, the path widened toward the Blue Line pen. Denzel stood between the rock walls and imagined the operation. Stolen cattle moved from the main herd at night, driven through the cut, held at the old pen. Tags changed, brands altered, loaded through the utility road, all without using the ranch's active chutes or main gates. Ray photographed the prints. Cole examined the wire. "These panels are new." "Purchased where?" Denzel asked. "We'll check." The surveyor walked farther ahead, then called back. "You need to see this." Near a shallow overhang, hidden behind cedar limbs, stood 3 plastic feed tubs, empty water containers, and a folding chair. Someone had been spending long hours there. On the ground lay cigarette butts, energy drink cans, and a torn piece of paper. Cole picked it up with tweezers. Only part of a printed heading remained. Mercy Regional Neurology. Walter's neurologist. Denzel stared at the paper. The theft operation and Walter's health were connected. That evening, Walter called a family meeting at the ranch house. Ray advised Denzel not to attend, but Walter insisted the matter involved his medical records. Denzel agged Jackson only after Ray placed a deputy outside. The Whitaker living room had always felt formal, with leather furniture no ranch hand sat on unless invited, and family portraits arranged above a stone fireplace. Travis stood near the bar cart with his attorney, a thin woman named Carolyn Voss. Leonard Pike occupied a chair by the window. Earl remained near the hallway. Walter sat in the center of the room. Denzel entered last. Travis smiled without warmth. "Back already?" Denzel ignored him. Walter held up the torn medical paper. This was found in Cedar Ridge. Travis looked at it. "So, it came from my neurologist. That doesn't mean anything. Someone had my records at a cattle holding site." Caroline Voss stepped forward. "Mr. Whitaker, your son has not been charged with any crime. I recommend we avoid speculative accusations." Walter looked at her. "This is my house." "Yes, sir. I'll speculate where I please." Travis poured himself a drink. Walter turned to Leonard. "Who has access to my medical files?" Leonard adjusted his glasses. "Your doctors, family, possibly, insurance. Ranch office? Some billing statements. Did you send anything to Prairie Meridian?" "No." "Did Travis?" "I wouldn't know." Travis laughed softly. "This is ridiculous." Walter looked at him. "Where were you during the storm?" "I told Ray." "You lied." "I didn't want him knowing about the poker game." "Dylan said you weren't there." Travis stopped smiling. Caroline touched his arm. "You don't need to answer." Walter's voice rose with effort. "You answer me." Travis set down the glass. "I drove around." "Where?" "I was angry." "Where?" "County roads." "I don't remember." "You remember everything when it helps you." Travis looked at Denzel. "This is what he wants. He wants you weak and confused." Denzel felt anger move through the room like heat. Walter's face went still. "What did you say?" Travis stepped toward him. "I'm trying to protect you. Since the stroke, you forget conversations. You approve things, then deny them. You turn people against me because you can't admit you're losing control." Walter's weak hand trembled. Earl moved closer, but Walter raised his cane. "No." He looked at Denzel. "Ask him." Denzel understood. "Ask him what?" "The question you asked me." Denzel faced Travis. "Did you plant the money in my truck?" "No." "The tag?" "No." "Were you at the Blue Line pen the night of the storm?" "No." "Did you tie that rope?" "No." "Did you arrange the sale of the Wilson trailer?" "Yes, to a scrapyard." "Which one?" "I don't remember." Denzel held his gaze. Convenient. Travis took another step. "You think because my father trusted you, this place belongs to you?" "No. You walked around here like it did." "I worked like it mattered." You gave orders to people with our name on their checks. I gave orders because you didn't know what you were doing. Walter closed his eyes. There it was. Not proof of theft, but the wound beneath it. Travis had not framed Denzel merely because he needed a scapegoat. He had framed him because Denzel represented every comparison Travis had lost. Denzel knew cattle better. Men respected him more. Walter trusted his judgment. Even after returning home as the owner's son, Travis had remained second to a man whose name would never appear on the deed. Caroline interrupted. This conversation is over. No, Walter said. She looked at him. Walter pointed toward the door. You are. Mr. Whitaker, leave. Travis shook his head. She stays. Walter's voice dropped. Then you leave with her. The silence that followed felt like a door closing on 30 years. Travis stared at his father. You'd choose him? Walter looked at Denzel, then back at his son. This is not about choosing him. It always has been. Travis grabbed his hat from the table. As he passed Denzel, he whispered, You should have taken the blame and walked away. Denzel turned. The words had been too quiet for most of the room. But Leonard heard. His face changed. Just slightly. Fear, then recognition. Travis left with his attorney. The front door slammed. Walter sank back into his chair. Denzel looked at Leonard. You knew? The accountant blinked. Knew what? That he framed me. No. You reacted. I reacted because he's angry. Denzel stepped closer. You've been afraid since we found the ledger. Leonard gripped the arms of his chair. Walter looked at him. Tell us. There's nothing to tell. 43 cattle disappeared through books you manage. I received numbers from the field. $300,000 went to a company you entered into the system. Leonard's mouth tightened. I followed. Instructions. Whose? Leonard looked toward the front door. Denzel saw the decision forming. Truth or survival. For years, Leonard had survived by making himself useful to whoever held authority. But authority in the room was changing, and he did not know which side would still be standing. I need protection, he said. Ray Bell entered from the hallway. He had been listening from the adjoining room with Walter's permission. We can discuss that, Ray said. Leonard's face drained of color. You set me up. No, Walter replied. You did that yourself. Leonard stood, but his knees nearly failed him. Earl guided him back into the chair. Ray sat across from him. Start with Prairie Meridian. Leonard stared at the floor. It was Travis's company. Walter closed his eyes. Denzel felt no satisfaction, only confirmation. He created it after the stroke, Leonard continued. Said the ranch needed financial restructuring without alarming employees or suppliers. You knew he owned it? Ray asked. Not at first. When did you learn? January. And you kept transferring money. He said Walter approved it. Did Walter? Leonard looked at the old rancher. I don't know. You control the authorization records. Travis had Walter's passwords. Walter's face hardened. I gave them to him for emergencies. He used them to approve contracts. Ray took notes. What was the money for? Leonard rubbed his hands together. Debts. What kind? Private loans, gambling mostly. But later there were land option payments. Denzel frowned. Land options? Travis planned to sell the western 6,000 acres to a development group. Walter struck the floor with his cane. No. Leonard flinched. He believed the ranch couldn't survive intact. He believed wrong. He had appraisals, water rights estimates, road access plans. Denzel thought of the old utility road in Cedar Ridge. Was the cattle theft funding the sale? Partly. Travis needed cash that wouldn't appear as debt. He also wanted the ranch books to show declining productivity. So he could argue the western land was a burden, Denzel said. Leonard nodded. Walter's voice was quiet. And Denzel? Leonard looked at him. Denzel would have found the missing cattle eventually. I did. Travis knew. Ray leaned forward. Who planted the evidence? Leonard swallowed. Travis told me he would handle it. That's not an answer. I didn't see him do it. Did you provide the cash? A long pause. Yes. Walter looked away. What about the ear tag? Ray asked. From the box at Blue Line Pen. Who runs the theft operation? Travis arranged the sales. I changed records and moved money. Who handled cattle? Leonard hesitated. A contract hauler named Wade Pritchard. Sometimes 2 men from outside the county. Where are the remaining stolen cattle? Most were sold. Most? Leonard looked at Denzel. 17 are still alive. Where? Hidden pasture near Sweetwater, registered under Prairie Meridian. Ray stood immediately. Address. Leonard gave it. Cole entered to make calls. Denzel looked at the accountant. Why was number 213 left behind? Storm spooked the group. Wade said one calf broke the rope and escaped through the cut. Travis went back looking for it. During the storm? Yes. That's why his boots had blue clay. Leonard nodded. Then he knew the calf had returned before he came to the county road. Yes. Denzel's jaw tightened. The first layer of the truth was finally complete. But Ray was still watching Leonard. What medical information was kept at Cedar Ridge? Leonard's face tightened again. That wasn't part of the cattle operation. What was it? Travis asked me to copy Walter's neurological reports. Why? He wanted evidence of cognitive decline. Walter stared at him. For court? For control of the ranch? The words settled heavily. Travis had not only been stealing cattle and money, he had been building a case to have his father declared incompetent. Walter's cane slipped from his hand and struck the floor. Earl picked it up. No one spoke for several seconds. Denzel watched the old man's face. The betrayal had moved beyond land and inheritance. It had entered the most private fear Walter possessed, the possibility that his mind was failing. Travis had fed that fear, documented it, and planned to use it as a weapon. Walter looked toward the family portraits above the fireplace. A photograph showed Travis at 12, sitting on a fence beside his mother, laughing into the wind. She had died when he was 17. Walter stared at that boy for a long time. Then he said, "Find my son." Deputies searched Travis's house that night, but he was gone. So was the silver pickup. His bank accounts showed recent withdrawals totaling $60,000. His phone had been turned off near Interstate 20 west of Abilene. Ray issued warrants for cattle theft, fraud, evidence tampering, and conspiracy. By morning, news trucks waited outside the Whitaker Ranch gate. The story spread quickly. Wealthy ranch heir accused of framing black foreman. The same people who had written Denzel off as guilty now shared Walter's statement and praised Denzel's patience. Commentators who had never set foot on a ranch debated racism, inheritance, and rural power. Denzel avoided all of it. Ray recovered the 17 cattle from the Sweetwater pasture. Their tags had been changed, But Denzel identified each animal through brand remnants, markings, and health records. Number 214 returned to its mother. The reunion happened in the north pasture beneath a pale morning sun. The cow bawled as the trailer backed toward the gate. When the calf stepped down, thin and stiff-legged, she crossed the pasture at a run. Denzel watched from outside the fence. The cow touched her nose to the calf's neck, then circled it, checking every inch as though confirming the world had returned what it took. Earl stood beside Denzel. "Walter wants you back." "No. He needs you. He needed me 3 days ago. He knows." Denzel watched the calf begin nursing. Knowing after the truth appears is easy. Earl rested his arms on the top rail. "Sometimes." Denzel looked at him. Earl's face held exhaustion and something heavier. "You got something to say?" "I helped Travis once." Denzel went still. "With the cattle?" "No." "What?" Earl stared across the pasture. "After Walter's stroke, Travis asked me to sign a statement saying Walter had become confused during a herd sale. Said it was for insurance." "Did you sign?" "Yes." Denzel stepped away from the fence. What did the statement say? That Walter approved selling 80 bred heifers, then forgot the price. Was that true? Partly. Walter got the price wrong later. That's not the same as forgetting the sale. I know. You gave Travis evidence. Earl nodded. Why? My wife's treatments cost more than insurance covered. Travis gave me $10,000. Denzel looked at the old hand differently. Earl had been his ally, the one man in the barn who had looked ashamed when Denzel was arrested. Now Denzel understood the source of the shame. Did Walter know? No. Ray. I told him this morning. What happens now? Maybe charges, maybe not. Depends whether the statement was used. Denzel looked back at the pasture. Justice rarely arrived clean. It did not divide people into innocent and guilty as neatly as ranch fences divided fields. Earl had betrayed Walter, but he had also helped uncover the Blue Line pen. He had taken money for his wife. He had remained silent while Denzel was arrested. He had found the calf and called Denzel first. A man could be loyal and cowardly in the same life, sometimes in the same hour. You should tell Walter yourself, Denzel said. I will. And don't ask me to forgive you yet? I won't. Earl walked away. Denzel stayed until the calf lay down beside its mother. By the end of the week, Travis remained missing. Wade Pritchard was arrested in Odessa while attempting to cross into New Mexico. He confessed to hauling stolen cattle, but claimed Leonard and Travis designed the operation. Leonard negotiated with prosecutors. Prairie Meridian's accounts were frozen. Walter's competence petition, prepared but not yet filed, was discovered on Travis's laptop. It included medical notes, employee statements, and a proposed guardianship arrangement naming Travis as controller of ranch assets. The petition also contained Denzel's name. According to the draft, Denzel had manipulated Walter, isolated him from family, and taken advantage of his decline to gain control over ranch operations. The cattle theft accusation would have supported that claim. Denzel finally understood the full design. Travis did not merely need him gone. He needed Denzel discredited so no one would believe him when Walter's competence became the next public fight. The missing calf had broken more than a rope. It had broken the sequence of events Travis needed. Without number 214 returning, the evidence against Denzel might have held long enough for Travis to file the petition, take emergency control of the ranch, and sell the western land before anyone knew what had happened. A calf's instinct to return to its mother had changed the future of 12,000 acres. But the danger was not over. 3 nights after Wade's arrest, someone set fire to the ranch records office. The fire started shortly after midnight. Earl smelled smoke from the bunkhouse and called 911. By the time volunteer trucks arrived, flames had climbed through the office roof and spread toward the equipment barn. Denzel heard the call over a county emergency scanner app Ray had asked him to monitor. He drove from the motel without thinking. When he reached the ranch, orange light covered the sky. Firefighters pulled hoses across the yard. Ranch hands moved trucks and tractors away from the heat. Cattle bawled in nearby pens, panicked by sirens and smoke. Walter stood near the house in a coat over his pajamas, leaning on Earl. Denzel parked outside the main lane and ran toward the barn. A firefighter stopped him. "You work here?" "Used to." "Then stay back." A propane tank exploded behind the office. The blast threw sparks across the yard. One landed on the hay shed roof. Denzel pointed. "You've got fire on the east side." The firefighter turned and shouted to another crew. Wind drove embers toward the calving barn. Inside were 12 late-season cows and 4 newborn calves. Ranch hands struggled with the gate. Smoke and sirens had the cattle packed against the rear wall. Denzel grabbed a wet bandana from a water trough and tied it over his face. Earl saw him. "Denzel, don't. They'll burn." He ran to the barn. Heat struck him before he reached the door. Inside, smoke rolled beneath the rafters. The cows pressed together, eyes wide, refusing to move toward the opening. Denzel climbed the side rail and shouted, "Cut the lights." A ranch hand near the switch hesitated. "Cut them." The barn went dark except for the orange glow behind the smoke. Cattle often moved toward light, but panic had locked them in place. Denzel opened the side exit leading into a narrow alley and aimed the headlights of his truck through the opposite gate. A bright path appeared. He moved behind the herd, speaking low and steady. "Come on, easy, easy now." One cow turned, then another. The first animal stepped toward the light. The rest followed. They moved through the alley as the hay shed roof ignited. Denzel counted them out. 10 cows, 11, 12, 3 calves. He looked back. One newborn remained near the rear wall, lying beneath smoke. Denzel climbed into the pen. The calf tried to stand and fell. Flames cracked above the adjoining shed. He lifted the animal against his chest. It weighed nearly 70 pounds, slick with sweat and ash. As he turned toward the exit, part of the roof beam collapsed across the alley. Sparks filled the air. Denzel stepped backward. The main door was blocked. He carried the calf toward the interior feed passage, but smoke thickened until he could barely see. Then a voice shouted through the darkness. "Denzel!" "Travis." For one stunned second, Denzel thought smoke had confused him. Then Travis appeared through the side door wearing a dark jacket and holding a wet blanket over his head. "This way." Denzel followed. Travis kicked open a small service gate hidden behind stacked panels. They stumbled into the open as the hay shed roof collapsed behind them. Firefighters took the calf. Denzel dropped to his knees, coughing. Travis stood nearby, hands on his thighs, fighting for breath. Deputies saw him. Cole drew his weapon. "Travis, hands where I can see them." Travis raised both hands. Walter stared across the yard. His son had returned from hiding to a burning ranch. Whether to save records, destroy evidence, or rescue lives, no one yet knew. Cole handcuffed him near the water trough. Denzel stood slowly. Travis looked at him. "You always were too stubborn to stay gone." Denzel wiped ash from his face. You set the fire? No. Why come back? Travis nodded toward the office. Because whoever did is trying to bury me with the rest of it. Deputies searched him and found no lighter, accelerant, or weapon. His pickup was discovered a mile away behind an abandoned church. Inside were clothes, cash, and a laptop bag. No fire-starting materials. The county fire marshal determined the blaze began with gasoline poured along the office's rear wall. Security cameras had been disabled, but one camera at the main equipment gate still recorded part of the road. At 11:41 p.m., a dark sedan entered the ranch. Leonard Pike drove a dark sedan. Ray found him at home before dawn. His shoes smelled of gasoline. The accountant confessed after 2 hours. Travis had called him from a prepaid phone, threatening to blame the entire operation on him unless he destroyed the remaining records. Leonard panicked. He entered the ranch with an old access code, poured gasoline, and set the fire. He did not know Travis had also returned. "Why did you come back?" Ray asked Travis during interrogation. Denzel watched through one-way glass at the sheriff's invitation. Travis sat in a gray room, wrists cuffed to a ring on the table. "I called Leonard," Travis said. "You ordered him to burn the office." "I told him to destroy files." "That is ordering him to burn it." "I didn't know he'd set the whole building on fire." "You drove there too?" "To stop him." Ray leaned forward. "Why?" Travis stared at the wall. "Because he texted me after he started it. Said the wind was wrong." "So you returned out of concern for the ranch?" "I returned because my father was there." "You tried to have your father declared incompetent." "That doesn't mean I wanted him dead." "You stole from him." "I was going to put the money back." "After selling half his land?" Travis looked down. Ray opened a folder. "You framed Denzel Jackson." Silence. "Didn't you?" Travis's jaw worked. "I want my attorney." The interrogation ended. Outside, Denzel found Walter waiting in the corridor. The old man had soot on his jacket and a bandage across one hand. "What did he say?" Walter asked. "Not enough." Walter nodded. They stood in silence. "He saved you," Walter said. "He showed me a door." He came back. "He also called the man who started the fire." Walter looked through the narrow window toward the interrogation room. "I keep trying to find the place where my son became this." Denzel leaned against the wall. "Maybe there wasn't one place. I raised him. You also trusted him. That was my failure. Trusting your son isn't a failure. Not seeing him was." Denzel looked at Walter. The old rancher's face was lined with exhaustion. "You saw what you hoped he'd become." Walter's eyes filled, though no tears fell. "And you? What about me? What did I see when they arrested you?" Denzel considered the question. "Your land." Walter flinched. "You saw a threat to the ranch, and you protected the deed before the man." "That's true." "It's what you always do." Walter looked down at his bandaged hand. Denzel continued. "You protected the ranch when Camille told you I needed time off. You gave me 3 days. I thought work would help. You protected the ranch when Earl's wife got sick. He took money from Travis because he was afraid to ask you. I would have helped." He didn't believe that. Walter said nothing. "You built this place so strong, nobody thought they were allowed to be weak inside it." The words were not angry. That made them harder. Walter sat on a bench. For years, Denzel had believed Walter's toughness was a form of fairness. Everyone worked. Everyone endured. The land came first. But land did not grieve. Land did not need reassurance. Land did not mistake silence for rejection. Walter had spent his life preserving acreage, while the people around him learned to hide what they needed. Travis hid debt. Earl hid desperation. Leonard hid fear. Denzel hid hurt. The ranch had looked strong because everyone carried their weakness alone. Walter stared at the floor. What do I do now? You tell the truth. About Travis. About all of it. The county livestock auction was scheduled for Saturday. Under normal circumstances, the Whitaker Ranch would have sent 22 feeder calves and 6 yearlings. After the arrests and fire, Walter planned to withdraw. Denzel changed his mind. Send them, he said. They stood inside the damaged ranch office, where sunlight came through a hole in the roof. Charred cabinets lined one wall. Water dripped onto the concrete floor. Walter looked at him. Why? Because everybody's watching to see whether this ranch is finished. Maybe it is? No. You said you weren't coming back. I'm not. Walter's expression fell. But the cattle still need selling. You want to run the auction? I want to finish what we started. The auction yard was where Travis had sold stolen cattle. It was also where Denzel's name had been damaged among ranchers, buyers, and haulers. A private apology would never repair public harm. The truth needed witnesses. By Saturday morning, the sale barn parking lot was full. News of Travis's arrest had drawn reporters, neighboring ranchers, county officials, and people who had no livestock to sell, but wanted to see what happened. Denzel arrived in his own truck. He wore a dark jacket, clean jeans, and the silver belt buckle Camille had given him on their 10th anniversary. Janice came from Fort Worth and stood beside him near the loading pens. You look nervous, she said. I am. Good. How is that good? Means you understand this matters. Walter arrived with Earl. The old rancher walked slowly through the crowd. Conversations quieted as he passed. Travis was not there. A judge had denied bond after the fire. Leonard remained in custody. Wade Pritchard had Ag Jackson to testify. But the central question in the community was no longer whether cattle had been stolen. It was what the Whitakers would do now. The auction manager offered Walter the office microphone before the sale began. Walter shook his head. Main ring. At 10 o'clock, the first cattle entered the circular sale arena beneath bright lights. Buyers sat in rising rows, hats low, sale catalogs folded in their hands. The auctioneer's voice rolled fast over the speakers. After 3 groups sold, the manager stopped the bidding. Walter entered the ring. Earl walked beside him, but remained near the gate. Denzel stood outside until Walter turned and raised a hand. Then Denzel joined him. Murmurs moved through the seats. Reporters lifted cameras. Walter took the microphone. For a moment, he said nothing. The auction ring had seen bankruptcies, family dispersals, drought sales, and generations of ranchers measuring hope in dollars per pound. Now an old man stood beneath its lights to measure the cost of his own choices. My family has sold cattle in this barn for 53 years, Walter began. His voice was slower than it had once been, but the room listened. My father sold here. I sold here. My son sold here. He paused. Some of the cattle my son brought through these gates did not belong to him. The crowd remained silent. He stole from our ranch. He lied to buyers. He altered records. And when he needed someone to blame, he chose Denzel Jackson. Walter turned toward Denzel. This man worked beside me for 18 years. He saved livestock, trained crews, protected this land, and told me the truth even when I did not want it. Denzel held still. When evidence was placed in his truck, I chose fear over loyalty. I allowed him to be arrested. I removed him from his home. I treated his years of service as though they weighed less than one envelope of cash. A woman in the front row lowered her eyes. Walter's hand trembled around the microphone. The law will decide my son's punishment, but the law cannot correct what I did. That responsibility is mine. He faced Denzel fully. I was wrong. The words echoed through the sale barn. Not I regret. Not mistakes were made. I was wrong. Denzel felt the weight of the room shift. Walter continued. I cannot give back the hours he spent in a jail cell. I cannot remove the photograph of his arrest or the words people wrote before they knew the truth. But I can say, publicly and without condition, that Denzel Jackson did not steal from the Whitaker Ranch. Applause began somewhere near the back. It grew quickly. Denzel looked across the rows. Some faces were sincere, some relieved, some ashamed. He did not need to separate them. Walter handed him the microphone. Denzel had not planned a speech. He looked toward Janice, who nodded once. Then he looked at the ranchers, buyers, workers, and neighbors. My name should not have needed a missing calf to make people question a lie, he said. The applause stopped. He let the silence remain. I had 18 years of work behind me. Some of you knew me. Some of you hired me. Some shook my hand at church or sat across from me at cattle meetings. He saw the feed supplier in the second row. The man looked down. Still, when the accusation came, many people found it easier to believe than my life. Denzel paused. That is not only Travis Whitaker's failure. The room tightened. It belongs to everyone who decided evidence did not need examination because the accused man looked like someone they had already been taught to doubt. No one moved. Denzel felt Camille's belt buckle against his waist. He imagined her beside him, not smiling, not rescuing him from the moment, simply making sure he did not make himself smaller for the comfort of others. I am grateful the truth came out. I am grateful to Earl Danner for finding number 214. I am grateful to Sheriff Bell for following evidence after the easy answer fell apart. Ray stood near the gate, hat held against his chest. But justice is not applause after a man survives being broken. Justice is what you do before you know whether he has the power to prove you wrong. Denzel handed the microphone back. For several seconds, the sale barn remained completely silent. Then Janice stood. She began clapping. Earl joined her. Ray did next. The applause spread more slowly this time, but it carried something the first had not. Not celebration, recognition. Walter's cattle entered the ring afterward. Number 214 was not among them. Denzel had insisted the calf remain on the ranch. The Whitaker group sold above market average. Buyers said it was because the cattle were strong. Others said people wanted to show support. Denzel knew both could be true. After the sale, Walter found him near the loading docks. I transferred the ranch house deed, Walter said. Denzel frowned. To who? You. No. Walter blinked. I thought, that house was part of my wages. I don't want it as apology. It's your home. It was. What do you want then? Denzel looked across the pens, where cattle shifted in afternoon sunlight. Change the ranch. How? Profit sharing for long-term employees, written housing agreements, emergency medical funds, independent audits. Walter listened. No more family passwords controlling company money, Denzel continued. No more handshake promises that disappear when somebody gets scared. Walter nodded slowly. And you? I'm starting my own operation. Where? Don't know yet. You need land. I'll find it. Walter studied him. The south section. Denzel shook his head. Lease it, Walter said. Not his apology. Business. You'd lease me Whitaker land? I'd lease land to the best cattleman I know. Denzel almost refused out of instinct. Then he considered the south section. 900 acres near the creek. Good grass, neglected fences. Enough room for a small cow-calf operation and horse training facility. A chance to build something that could not be taken from him at sunset. Market rate, Denzel said. Walter nodded. Written contract? Yes. Independent attorney? Yes. 10-year term, with renewal options. Walter's mouth moved toward the beginning of a smile. You negotiate harder when you're angry. I'm not angry. What are you? Denzel looked toward the open range beyond the auction yard. Finished being grateful for less than I earned. Walter lowered his eyes. That's fair. No, it's business. 3 months passed before Travis entered a plea. He admitted to conspiracy, fraud, cattle theft, evidence tampering, and filing false financial documents. In exchange for his cooperation in recovering funds and identifying outside buyers, prosecutors reduced several charges. He still faced years in state prison. Before sentencing, he asked to speak with Denzel. Denzel declined twice. The third request came through Walter. He says there's something you don't know, Walter said. Denzel sat in the temporary ranch office, rebuilt inside an unused equipment shed. Is this about the case? He wouldn't tell me. Then he can tell Ray. He asked for you. Denzel stared through the open door at number 214, grazing beside its mother. The calf had gained weight. The rope burn had healed, leaving a faint pale line beneath the jaw. Denzel Ag Jackson. The county jail meeting room contained a steel table and 2 bolted chairs. Travis entered wearing an orange uniform. He looked thinner. The restless energy that once filled him had collapsed inward, leaving deep shadows around his eyes. A deputy secured him to the table and left. Denzel sat across from him. You have 10 minutes. Travis nodded. For a while, neither spoke. Then Travis said, I hated you when I was 14. Denzel leaned back. That's what you needed to tell me? My father let me help during spring branding. I messed up the vaccine count. You caught it. You almost double-dosed 20 calves. I know. You cried behind the barn. Travis looked surprised. You saw? Yes. Why didn't you tell him? Because you fixed it. Travis stared at the table. He praised you that night at dinner. For what? For catching the mistake. Said the ranch needed men who paid attention. Denzel remembered the branding, but not the dinner. Travis did. I spent my whole life hearing your name whenever I failed, he said. Denzel would have checked the gate. Denzel knows the herd. Ask Denzel. Let Denzel decide. That was Walter's fault. I know. No, you don't. Because you punished me for it. Travis looked up. I thought if you were gone, he'd finally see me. He saw you. Not the way I wanted. He trusted you with the ranch. After the stroke, because he had to. Denzel shook his head. He gave you access to everything. And I ruined it. Yes. Travis flinched at the bluntness. Denzel continued. You stole because you were in debt. You sold land you didn't own because you wanted control. But you framed me because you believed my dignity was the cheapest thing on the ranch. Travis's eyes reddened. I knew people would believe it. That makes it worse. I know. No. Knowing comes with cost. You're just beginning to pay. Travis looked down again. I didn't set the fire. I know. I came back because Leonard said the barn might catch. Why call him in the first place? Because I was afraid. Denzel studied him. Everyone on the ranch had used that word eventually. Walter, Earl, Leonard, now Travis. Fear had become the hidden foreman of the Whitaker Ranch. It gave orders nobody admitted following. What don't I know? Denzel asked. Travis drew a slow breath. Prairie Meridian bought an option on the south section. Denzel went still. From who? A holding company. The development group assigned it. Walter never signed. I forged his electronic signature. Is the option valid? My attorney says probably not, but the group may sue. Why tell me? Because my father offered you the lease. How do you know? He visited yesterday. Denzel's jaw tightened. Walter had not mentioned the option. Travis saw the anger. He doesn't know yet. I didn't tell him. Why tell me first? Because the group isn't giving up. They need the south section for road access. Without it, the western development is worthless. Denzel leaned forward. Who leads the group? Travis hesitated. State Senator Nolan Grady's brother-in-law, Everett Shaw. The name was familiar. Shaw operated land development companies across West Texas and had a reputation for acquiring distressed farms through pressure, liens, and legal exhaustion. Denzel stood. You have documents? On the laptop Ray seized, hidden folder named Veterinary Expenses. Password? 201 Whitaker. Denzel stared at him. The calf's number. Travis gave a bitter smile. I used it before the calf went missing. It was my mother's birthday. February 14th. For the first time, the number became something other than evidence. Travis had chosen the calf partly because its tag was easy to remember. The plan had been shaped by convenience. The truth had turned convenience into fate. Denzel moved toward the door. Was any part of your apology real? Travis's face tightened. I don't know how to make you believe me. You don't. Denzel knocked for the deputy. Behind him, Travis said, I'm sorry. Denzel stopped but did not turn. I believe you feel sorry. That's not enough? No. He left. The South Section dispute became the final battle over the ranch. Everett Shaw's company claimed it held a binding purchase option signed by Walter. The signature was electronic. Authorization records appeared legitimate, and Prairie Meridian had received a $200,000 option payment. Walter insisted he never approved the deal. Shaw threatened to sue for breach of contract and file liens against the ranch. The timing was deliberate, with Travis facing prison, Leonard cooperating with prosecutors, and the ranch recovering from financial losses. Shaw expected Walter to settle. Denzel expected him to fight. Instead, Walter considered selling. They argued beside the south pasture gate. A cold November wind moved through the yellow grass. Number 214 grazed with the herd beyond them. I can't risk the whole ranch, Walter said. You'd lose the south section and access to half the western land. I know. Shaw knows too. I'm 71 years old. I don't have 5 years for court. So you give him land bought through fraud? I protect what remains. Denzel looked at him. That's what you said when they arrested me. Walter's face hardened. This is different. No, it's the same decision. Somebody brings you fear, and you hand over whatever they point at. That's easy for you to say. Your name isn't on 12,000 acres of debt. My name was in a jail record. Walter looked away. Denzel lowered his voice. Shaw's counting on you being tired. I am tired. Then let somebody else carry part of it. Who? Me. Walter turned. Denzel continued. Sign the lease. 10 years. Market rate. Give me legal standing as the operator of the South Section. You'd inherit the lawsuit. I'd enter it. Why would you do that? Because he's not taking the land. Walter stared at him. Denzel had spent months insisting he would not return to the old arrangement. This was not returning. This was entering on new terms. Ownership of his labor, protection in writing, a stake strong enough to stand in court. Your operation isn't ready, Walter said. It will be. You don't have cattle. I have financing. From where? Janice. Walter almost smiled. She trusts you with money? She trusts contracts. The lease was signed 3 days later. Denzel Jackson Cattle and Training, LLC, became the official operator of the Whitaker South Section. Denzel purchased 32 bred cows from a dispersal sale near San Angelo and brought in 6 client horses for training. Janice invested with strict repayment terms and weekly financial reports. Earl left the Whitaker payroll and joined Denzel as equipment manager. It was not forgiveness. Not yet. It was a chance to work honestly while earning it. Walter created an employee emergency fund and established a profit-sharing plan. He hired an independent ranch manager for operations outside the South Section and placed the property into a trust preventing unilateral sale by any one family member. The land dispute went to a county hearing in January. Everett Shaw arrived with 3 attorneys and a stack of documents. Denzel sat beside Walter's legal team. The hearing room was smaller than the auction barn, but carried the same public weight. Reporters filled the back row. Ranch hands, neighbors, and county officials occupied every seat. Shaw's attorney argued that Walter's digital signature was valid and that Prairie Meridian acted as an authorized intermediary. Walter's attorney presented evidence of fraud, identity misuse, and Travis's confession. Then Shaw's team introduced a surprise. A recorded video showed Walter discussing sale of the western land with Travis 6 months before the option agreement. In the video, Walter sat at his kitchen table. I can't keep all of it forever, he said. Maybe the West Side needs another future. Shaw's attorney paused the recording. The owner clearly contemplated sale. Walter looked stunned. Denzel remembered the period after the stroke. Medications, fatigue, conversations Walter might not fully remember. The judge allowed the full recording. Travis's voice came from behind the camera. So you approve me exploring buyers? Walter rubbed his forehead. I approve you bringing options. Nothing gets signed. What if the price is right? Then we discuss it. Shaw's attorney argued the conversation granted authority. Walter's attorney argued it did not. The judge seemed uncertain. Then Denzel noticed something in the video background. A calendar hung beside the kitchen doorway. February. But the metadata showed the recording had been made in May. He leaned toward the attorney. Ask when that room was painted. She frowned. What? The wall behind Walter? Ask. During cross-examination, Walter testified that the kitchen had been repainted in March after a pipe leak. The video showed the old wall color. It had not been recorded 6 months before the agreement. It had been recorded earlier, then falsely dated. Shaw's attorney claimed metadata errors. Denzel asked for a recess and called Janice. She reviewed the visible medication bottles on the kitchen table. One prescription label showed a dosage Walter had taken only during the first 2 weeks after his stroke. The video had been recorded during his initial recovery, when Travis was supposedly helping manage appointments. Months before any formal land discussion, Walter's approval had been pulled from a vulnerable conversation and repurposed. The judge ordered forensic analysis. 2 weeks later, experts confirmed the file creation date had been altered. Shaw's claim collapsed. The option was declared void due to fraud. The court referred the developer's involvement to state investigators after evidence showed Shaw's office had received internal ranch financial records before negotiating the agreement. The south section remained intact. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded Walter and Denzel. One asked whether they considered the decision justice. Walter looked at Denzel. Denzel answered, "It's a decision. Justice is what we build after it." By spring, the south section looked different. New fencing ran along the creek. Water troughs stood on concrete pads. A renovated horse barn carried a simple metal sign, "Jackson Cattle and Training." No Whitaker name above it. No borrowed house. No promise that depended on another man's mood. Denzel moved into a small home he purchased on 5 acres bordering the lease. It needed roof work and smelled faintly of mice, but the deed carried his name. Janice framed the first mortgage statement and hung it in the kitchen. "That is not decoration," Denzel told her. "It is in this family." Earl rebuilt the old equipment shed and installed a coffee maker better than the one at the ranch office. Trust returned slowly. Some mornings, Denzel spoke to him only about work. Other days, they shared lunch beneath the barn awning. Earl never asked to be restored to the place he had held before. He understood that remorse did not create a right to closeness. Walter visited once a week. At first, he came to discuss cattle. Later, he came without a reason. They sat on the porch and watched the south herd move through the grass. Walter's speech improved. His left hand remained weak. He began therapy in Abilene and attended every appointment without Travis controlling the schedule. One afternoon, he brought a wooden box. Inside were old Whitaker Ranch documents, photographs, and a silver pocket watch. "This belonged to my father," Walter said. Denzel closed the box. "I can't take that. I'm not giving it to you." "Then why bring it?" Walter looked across the pasture. "I'm showing you what I thought legacy was." Denzel waited. Objects, acres, a name on a gate. Walter rubbed the worn wood. "I nearly lost everything trying to preserve the wrong things." "What is it now?" Walter watched number 2 Ford Hoyne, nearly grown, standing near the creek. "What remains honest after you're gone?" Denzel considered that. "Then you've got work left." Walter smiled. "So do you." Travis was sentenced in early summer. Walter attended. Denzel did not. He read the newspaper report afterward. Travis apologized to the ranch employees, livestock buyers, his father, and Denzel. The judge sentenced him to 7 years, with eligibility for parole after serving part of the term, plus restitution and a prohibition against managing livestock sales or financial accounts during supervision. Some people thought the sentence too light. Others thought it severe for a man who eventually cooperated. Denzel did not measure justice by the number of years. Travis had lost control of the ranch he tried to steal. He had lost the public identity built around his family name. Whether punishment changed him would depend on what he did when nobody was required to admire him. Late that summer, a wildfire started along County Road 18 after a trailer chain dragged sparks through dry grass. The fire moved fast through cedar and brush, driven by 40-mile-per-hour winds. Denzel saw smoke from the south barn and called Walter. "Move the western herd east. Open the creek gates. We're already on it." Denzel loaded horses and sent Janice toward town with records and equipment. Earl hitched the water trailer. Volunteer fire crews arrived within 20 minutes, but flames had already reached Cedar Ridge. The old Blue Line pen stood directly in the fire's path. For a moment, Denzel watched smoke cover the place where the theft had been hidden. Then he turned to the cattle. Hundreds of animals needed moving through a narrow route before the fire crossed the ridge. The old Drover Cut remained open. The same passage used to steal cattle could save them. Denzel rode at the front with Earl behind. Ranch hands pushed the herd toward the Cedar Gap while smoke darkened the sky. Cattle resisted the narrow entrance. Denzel dismounted and led number 200 into the cut. The young steer hesitated at the opening, smelling old fear in the rock walls. Denzel touched its neck where the rope scar remained. "Come on, boy." The steer stepped forward. The herd followed. One by one, then, in a flowing line, cattle moved through the ridge toward the north pasture in safety. Flames reached the Blue Line pen as the last cows entered the cut. The old storage shed burned first, then the chute. Blue paint, hidden beneath decades of weather, appeared briefly in the heat before turning black. Denzel stood at the north end, counting cattle as they emerged. Every animal made it through. Walter arrived in a ranch truck and climbed out slowly. He looked toward the ridge, where smoke rose above the ruined pen. "Whole place is gone," he said. Denzel nodded. "Good." Walter glanced at him. Denzel watched number 240 rejoin the herd. That pen held enough secrets. The wildfire burned 300 acres, but spared the homes, barns, and main grazing fields. Afterward, the community gathered to repair fences. People who had once doubted Denzel worked beside him in the heat. Some apologized. Some did not. He learned not every repaired fence required a speech. A man could remember what happened without carrying it in both hands forever. In October, Denzel hosted the first open ranch day at Jackson Cattle and Training. Local high school agriculture students toured the barns. Families watched horse demonstrations. Janice operated a food tent and charged everyone who had once ignored her investment advice extra for pie. Walter sat beneath an oak tree talking with old ranchers. Earl taught children how to coil rope. Near sunset, Denzel walked to the south pasture fence. Number 214 stood on the other side, fully grown now, the crooked white stripe still bright across its face. The animal had become something of a local legend. Visitors asked to see the calf that solved the crime, though Denzel always corrected them. "The calf didn't solve anything," he said. "It came home." People finally paid attention. A boy of about 10 stood beside him. "Is that the scar?" Denzel nodded. The pale line beneath the steer's jaw was almost hidden by winter hair. "Did it hurt him?" "Yes." "Does it still?" Denzel looked at the animal. "I don't know." The boy considered this seriously. "My dad says scars stop hurting. Sometimes. What do they do after? They remind you where not to tie the rope again." The boy smiled as though Denzel had made a joke. Maybe he had. Across the pasture, Walter rose from his chair and walked toward them. His cane pressed small circles into the dirt. The crowd began to leave as the sun dropped low over the Texas hills. Orange light stretched across the grass. Walter rested his arms on the fence. "Good day," he said. "Good day. You ever think how close we came to losing the ranch? To losing everything?" Denzel watched number 214 move toward its mother, now older and heavy with another calf. "We did lose things." Walter nodded. "My son, my home, your trust, your certainty." They stood together as the evening cooled. Walter looked toward the Jackson sign above the barn. "You built something better. I built something mine. That's what I mean." Denzel glanced at him. Years earlier, praise from Walter would have filled him with pride. Later, it would have made him angry. Now it simply belonged to the moment. Accepted, but not needed. A truck door closed near the barn. Janice called that she was leaving and reminded Denzel to lock the office. Earl turned off the arena lights. The ranch settled into quiet. Walter started toward his vehicle, then stopped. "Denzel?" "Yes?" "I wrote Travis." Denzel waited. "I told him the ranch will not be his when he gets out. That's probably wise. I also told him he may work here someday." Denzel studied Walter's face. "Under whose authority?" "Not mine." "Then whose?" Walter looked at the cattle. "The trust, the manager, may be yours if you're willing." Denzel shook his head. "You're planning 10 years ahead now." "I'm trying. And if I say no, then no." That answer mattered. Not because Denzel had decided whether Travis deserved another chance. He had not. But Walter was finally learning that reconciliation could not be commanded like ranch work. It could be offered, structured, and refused. Denzel looked toward the road Travis had once used to move stolen cattle in darkness. "Let him serve his time," Denzel said. "Let him become someone who doesn't need the ranch to prove who he is." Walter nodded. "And after that?" "After that, ask again." Walter left. Denzel remained by the fence. The last sunlight touched the hills, turning cedar and limestone gold. Cattle moved through the grass with the slow confidence of animals that expected morning to come. He thought of the day he had been arrested, the plastic bag on the workbench, the money, the silence. He remembered the humiliation of walking past men he had trained, the shock of Walter's doubt, and the helpless anger of seeing his life reduced to evidence planted by someone who understood exactly what the world might believe. He would never call that suffering necessary. Pain did not become good simply because something meaningful grew after it. But he had learned what the ordeal revealed. A reputation built under another man's roof could disappear. Loyalty without protection could be exploited. Silence could look like strength while hiding fear. Forgiveness could exist without restoring access. And justice was not a single moment when a crowd finally applauded. It was the contract signed in his own name, the house deed in his desk, the employee fund Walter created, the truth Earl told despite shame. The cattle returned to their rightful herd, the land kept from men who thought an old rancher's weakness made it available. It was also the space Denzel had preserved inside himself, the part Travis had tried to fill with bitterness and failed. Number 214 lifted its head. For a moment, the steer looked directly at him. Denzel smiled. "You caused a lot of trouble." The animal flicked one ear and returned to grazing. Night came gently over the south section. Denzel closed the gate, checked the latch twice, and walked toward the light above his own front porch. Behind him, the herd settled safely on land no lie had managed to take.